A single milliliter of human blood costs around $13 to process. A single milliliter of standard HP printer ink costs around $50. That means the liquid inside your printer is nearly 4 times more expensive than blood. And yet most people just shrug, drive to the store, and buy another cartridge. That reaction, the shrug, is actually the whole business model. To understand why, you need to go back to the 1850s and a man named King Gillette. Gillette had one idea: sell the razor cheap, then sell the blades forever. It is now one of the most copied business strategies in the history of commerce. Printer companies took that idea and ran with it farther than anyone else. HP, Canon, Epson, and Brother all sell their printers at or near cost. Some entry-level inkjet printers actually sell below the cost to manufacture them. The printer is not the product, it is the trap. Once you own a printer, you are locked into that brand's proprietary cartridges. HP cartridges only work in HP printers, Canon cartridges only in Canon printers, and so on. The ink itself is not chemically exotic. It is mostly water, dye, and a few binding agents. The raw materials in a standard cartridge cost manufacturers somewhere around $3 to $5. That same cartridge retails for $25 to $45 on a store shelf. That is a markup of roughly 800% or more. For context, the markup on a luxury handbag is around 12 times the cost of materials. Printer ink beats the handbag. So who actually pockets that margin? HP Inc., just the printer division, earns more than 60% of its gross profit from ink and toner supplies. That is a company built on selling a hardware device, making most of its money on the liquid inside. In HP's annual reports, the supply segment consistently carries gross margins above 50%. Meanwhile, the hardware margin hovers close to zero, or sometimes tips negative. This is by design, not by accident. Now you might ask, why doesn't someone just make cheaper ink that works in existing printers? The answer is, they did, and the printer companies responded with patent law and chip warfare. Modern cartridges contain tiny microchips that communicate with the printer. Those chips can tell the printer to refuse a cartridge if it was not made by the original manufacturer. HP even pushed a firmware update in 2016 that remotely disabled millions of third-party cartridges already installed in printers. People came home to find their printers had stopped working overnight, without touching a thing. HP was sued over it, settled the class action lawsuit, and paid out to affected customers. And then they kept doing it because the profit on ink was worth more than the legal cost. That is a company explicitly choosing litigation costs as a line item in defense of ink margins. The third-party ink market, companies like Epson-compatible clones and refill kits, does exist despite this, but it is constantly squeezed by patents, chip updates, and printer warranties that void if you use third-party supplies. There are over 10,000 patents related to ink cartridge technology filed by printer companies. Many of those patents are not about making better ink, they are about making it harder to compete. This is called a patent moat, and every major tech company builds one. Now let's talk about the ink itself, because the science is actually interesting. Consumer inkjet printers work by firing microscopic droplets of ink through tiny nozzles at enormous speed. Each droplet is about 1 to 4 picoliters. A picoliter is 1/1,000,000th of a liter. The engineering to do that reliably, thousands of times per second, is genuinely difficult. But that R&D cost was paid back long ago. Inkjet printing is decades-old technology. The companies still charge as though they are recouping massive research investment. They are not. Canon introduced inkjet printing commercially in 1985. That technology is now 40 years old. And yet the price per milliliter has not meaningfully dropped the way most technology prices do. Moore's law applies to chips. Computers double in power and halve in cost roughly every 2 years. Ink just stayed expensive. That flat price is not a failure of economics. It is economics working exactly as intended for the seller. Let's follow the money when you buy a cartridge at a big box retailer. You pay, say, $35 for a standard color cartridge. The retailer keeps roughly 20 to 30% of that as margin. The printer brand receives around $24 to $28 from the retailer. The actual ink inside costs the manufacturer $3 to $5 to produce. That leaves $20+ of gross profit on a single cartridge. Now multiply that by billions of cartridges sold every year. HP's printing segment alone generates around $19 billion in annual revenue, and the majority of that is not printers. It is ink, toner, and service contracts. Here is the part most people never notice. You probably print far less than you think you do. Cartridges have expiration dates, real ones, printed on the package. After that date, the printer may refuse to use them even if they are full. So you are not just paying for the ink you use, You are paying for ink time. There is also a darker trick. Inkjet printers use ink to clean their own print heads. Every time you turn the printer on or leave it idle too long, it runs a cleaning cycle that consumes ink. Some studies suggest that on low-usage printers, a significant portion of ink consumed is never actually printed. The Epson ET EcoTank line tried to break this model. It uses refillable tanks and cheap bottled ink. A bottle of EcoTank ink can cost as little as $12 and print roughly 2,000 pages. Compare that to a standard cartridge that prints 200 pages and costs $35. Epson makes its money on the upfront printer cost instead. EcoTank printers retail for $200 to $400. It is a different razor model. Expensive razor, cheap blades. For heavy users, it saves significant money, but most home users print so rarely the economics barely shift. Here is the psychological trap at the core of all of this. The pain of the printer price and the pain of the ink price are separated in time. Behavioral economists call this the separation of payment and consumption. When you buy the printer, you feel the sticker price, but the ongoing ink cost feels like a small, separate decision each time. That mental separation is worth billions of dollars to printer companies. There is also a subscription trap now. HP Instant Ink charges a monthly fee based on how many pages you print. Plans start around $2 to $3 a month for 10 pages, going up to $25 a month for 700 pages. That sounds reasonable until you realize HP remotely monitors your cartridge usage through your internet connection. If you cancel the subscription, the ink you already have in the printer can be remotely disabled. You do not own the ink. You are renting the right to print. This was confirmed in HP's terms of service and generated genuine consumer outrage in 2023. The EU is now investigating printer ink practices as potential anti-competitive behavior. The right to repair movement has explicitly targeted ink cartridges as a case study in planned obsolescence. But regulation moves slowly, and the companies keep printing money, quite literally. So what can you actually do if you want to stop getting raked over the coals? Option 1. Think about what you actually need before buying. If you print mostly text, a black and white laser printer is almost always cheaper per page. Laser toner cartridges are expensive upfront but last much longer, often 2,000 pages or more. If you print color photos regularly, a purpose-built photo printer or a print shop may save you money. And if you almost never print, consider whether you need a home printer at all. Most libraries, office stores, and even pharmacies offer paper print services for around 10 to 15 cents a page. Now let's zoom out for a second, because the ink story is actually a window into something bigger. The razor and blades model is everywhere in the modern economy once you start looking. Gaming consoles are sold near cost. The money is in games, subscriptions, and in-app purchases. Single-serve coffee machines like Nespresso sell the machine cheaply to lock you into proprietary pods. The price per cup from a Nespresso pod is often more than a flat white at a coffee shop. The whole model depends on one thing: switching costs. Once you own the machine, the cost of switching to a competitor feels enormous, even if the savings are real. That friction, real or imagined, keeps you paying premium prices for a commodity liquid. And the ink companies know it. That friction is modeled, measured, and actively maintained. There is one final twist that almost nobody talks about. The ink industry is also massively environmentally wasteful. Roughly 375 million empty ink cartridges are thrown away globally every year. Most are not recycled because the take-back programs are inconvenient and underused. Each plastic cartridge takes roughly 1,000 years to decompose in landfill, and yet the manufacturing model keeps producing them at scale because the margin makes it worthwhile. So to recap, ink costs what it does not because of the liquid, but because of the lock-in. The printer is the trap, the cartridge is the revenue, and the chip is the enforcer. The companies that profit most are not the ones making the best ink. They are the ones with the deepest moat. And the consumer who never notices is the one who keeps the whole system running. The next time you drive to the store for a cartridge, you are not buying ink. You are paying the rent on a machine you thought you already owned. And the landlord is doing just fine.